independence was only the beginning. The chains just became invisible. They said Africa was free, flags were raised, anthems were sung, but beneath the celebrations, a quiet theft continued. The same powers that looted Africa's gold, oil, and people during colonialism never really left. They just changed their methods. Today, we'll uncover how colonial powers still control Africa's wealth through systems designed to look harmless, but built to keep Africa on its knees. Welcome to Afri Facts, where we dig deep into the hidden truths of our history. The colonial blueprint. Loot in broad daylight. When the European powers carved up Africa in the late 19th century, they weren't interested in nations, only in resources. Britain wanted gold, cocoa, and oil. France wanted cotton, timber, and uranium. Belgium drained Congo's rubber and ivory while millions of Africans died. Railways weren't built to connect Africans. They were built to export wealth from the interior straight to the ports. Colonialism was a business, not a mission. And Africa's economy was structured to serve Europe, not itself. But even after the flags changed, the system stayed the same. Independence without power. By the 1960s, most African countries had gained political independence. But economic independence? That's another story. The colonial powers realized they didn't need direct rule anymore. They could rule through money. Loans, currencies, and aid became the new weapons. This was the birth of neo-colonialism, control without conquest. Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana's first president, warned about it. Neo-colonialism is the worst form of imperialism. Those who practice it use economic and political power to control nations in disguise. He was right, because while Africa was free on paper, its economy was still being dictated from abroad. The CFA Franc, France's silent empire. Let's talk about one of the clearest examples, the CFA Franc. Created by France in 1945, the CFA is still used today by 14 African countries. On the surface, it seems like a shared currency, but in reality, it's a colonial handcuff. Here's how it works. Every country using the CFA franc must keep 50% of its foreign reserves in the French treasury. France guarantees the currency's stability, but that means France controls its value. Any major financial decision must be approved by France. Imagine being independent, but needing permission from your former colonizer to spend your own money. That's the daily reality for millions of Africans. This system allows France to profit from African resources, interest, and trade while claiming to be a partner who never left the driver's seat. That's never fair. Africa produces the world's raw materials, oil, cocoa, gold, diamonds, lithium, yet remains the poorest continent. Why? Because trade is rigged. African nations export raw materials and import finished goods, a system that keeps them trapped in dependency. For example, Ghana exports cocoa worth billions, but makes less than 5% of the profit from chocolate. Nigeria sells crude oil, then buys refined petrol at higher prices. Congo supplies the world's cobalt for electric cars, yet its people live in poverty. This isn't an accident. It's a system designed by the same colonial logic. Africa produces, the West profits. And when African nations try to build their own industries, they face sanctions, IMF conditions, or are told their economies are unstable. Aid or exploitation. Every year, billions of dollars flow into Africa as foreign aid. But here's the ugly truth. For every $1 of aid Africa receives, it loses about $10 through exploitation, tax evasion, and unfair trade. Western corporations extract Africa's minerals, evade taxes, and send profits overseas. Multinationals like Shell, Total, and Glencore have made hundreds of billions, while African workers earn a fraction of that. So who's really helping who? It's not aid. It's a repayment plan for colonialism. Only this time, Africa is the one still paying. The new chains, debt and dependency. Debt is the new tool of control. Many African countries spend more money repaying loans than funding health and education combined. These debts are often owed to institutions like the IMF and World Bank, dominated by Western powers. They impose conditions, privatize this, cut subsidies, open your markets. But who benefits? Foreign companies, not the people. This is how neo-colonialism works today. No soldiers, no governors, just banks and contracts that bind nations tighter than chains ever did. But there's hope. Across the continent, new leaders and movements are calling for economic sovereignty. West African nations are pushing to replace the CFA Franc with their own currency, the ECO. Countries like Rwanda and Ethiopia are investing in local manufacturing instead of exporting raw materials. Pan-African organizations are pushing for intra-African trade, not just exports to Europe. The African Continental Free Trade Area, AFCFTA, could create one of the world's largest markets if Africa stands united, because the real power lies in unity and production, not in begging for aid. Colonialism never ended. It just evolved. From flags to finance, from armies to algorithms, from overt domination to economic manipulation. The question is, how long will Africa keep playing a game that was never meant for it to win? The answer lies in education, unity, and courage. When Africans begin to control their own narrative, their wealth, their trade, their future, then the true independence will finally begin. They took our gold, our oil, our people. Now they take our profits, our policies, our potential. But the story isn't over, because this generation is waking up, and the new struggle is not for independence, it's for economic liberation. If you believe in Africa's rise, hit that subscribe button, share this video, and keep learning with us on Afri Facts. Because knowledge is the first weapon against exploitation. Afri Facts, neo-colonialism, Africa rising.